quanto gli Spandau hanno partecipato alla realizzazione appunto del film, hanno avuto voce in capitolo nella scelta delle scene.
The idea for the film came about, I guess, at least 2 years before I got involved. I think it was it Steve Dagger?
Yeah, really, and then we all just grew on the idea, yeah.
And then Gary thought maybe there wasn't enough footage to be able to make a film about the band, but when they sent somebody out to start gathering together any Spandau archive, it turned out that in fact there was a lot. How much were they involved in the process?
Choosing you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we had a few ways that we felt that it should go. We wanted it to be archive only, with the voiceovers of the band, and we wanted it to have some context of the time and place. But really, once we'd found George and we'd found faith in George, and we liked you as a person, we wanted to leave her alone, really, to make the film that she wanted to make. Otherwise, you know, I think it would have been a little bit of a PR job. You know, it needed to be a film that was truthful, and we went through a very difficult period in our relationship, and we knew that we couldn't get involved in editing that. So it was up to George.
I think it's kind of impossible for the subject of a film to be that much involved in the editing process. It takes an objective view to really be able to bring the story out. Otherwise, you know, yeah, it has to be that way. They were really generous, though, in allowing me to kind of venture into areas that were perhaps sensitive and still painful. But I wanted to make it truthful, and I wanted to make it emotionally affecting for the people who were watching, without stitching them up.
There were lots of moments looking back before the actual final edit, where I think we all sort of saw parts in the film which we would have rather have taken out. And I remember many times, a couple of times saying to George, you know, can we look at that there? I'm not sure whether that should be in there. I don't like to be portrayed as that. I don't like what I'm saying about other band members. And she said, no, that's exactly what we need for this. And that was the most honest thing to do.
We didn't like what you were saying about the band.
You know, in the end, we could have walked away from the film, but I think we all knew that this was a really great story that George had found about friendship. It was a different angle. Never seen a rockumentary made like that before, and it would be to the benefit of all of us just to let it go. But it was uncomfortable to watch as a band for the first time. In fact, that's why the other two aren't here.
E come ci si sente invece essere protagonisti di un documentario sulla vostra storia? Come ci si sente essere protagonisti di una storia raccontata da un documentario?
An unbelievable journey. I mean, you know, to see your life in an hour and a half on the big screen is crazy, and it's some of it's hard, some of it's great, but I think the honesty is the most important thing. I think everyone's very proud of it. You know, it's what happened, like it or not. That's what we did. That's what happened, and I think we're very proud of the film.
We wanted to make the film because we sort of, standing back after we got back together 5 years ago, we realised we had a sort of 3-act story. It was a classic arc, you know, and a denouement. And so, you know, if you're writing a fictitious story about a band, this would probably be the way it would work. So
it was tricky. That middle bit was, you know, watching for the first time as a band in the same room. It was really weird. You know, you see certain things, but then when everyone's sitting next to you,
it was
tricky. It was really tricky.
With George.
Well, the beauty of it, I mean, it's just it's really George's film. You know, we've just gone, right, go for it. And she, in the process of talking to us lot, has really come up with a story that is, it's just a story that everyone can relate to, because it's about people, human beings and relationships and friendship.
I think that initially maybe there was an idea that it was quite important to kind of talk about how many records were sold, or how many people were at a particular gig, or how many weeks a certain record might have spent at the top of the charts. But to me, that is not, you know, you can find that on Google, you can look it up on Wikipedia. The thing that people don't know is that, you know, these guys, they weren't a manufactured band. These guys grew up together, and they lived this incredible journey together. And the stresses and strains on any relationship relationship. If you've been friends with someone since you were 15 years old, by the time you're 16, 17, you know, by the time you're 20, things have really changed. Now imagine that you're kind of bound together by a phenomenally successful career and the stresses and strains of that. That's what I was very interested in. And I was interested as well in the fact that, you know, the most important thing, the thing that brought them together, rises above any of the difficulties. You know, the minutiae of disagreements don't really count in the face of what happens when they get in a room together and start playing music.
E a questo proposito, guardando il film, è impossibile non notare quanto sia cambiato il mondo della musica. Loro appunto sono cresciuti insieme, professionalmente e personalmente, oggi ci sono un po' musicalmente delle meteore. Quanto secondo voi è cambiato il mondo della musica e quanto in meglio e in peggio?
I think a lot of that is because kids that come out from reality TV, they're not trained to deal with it. They don't, you know, it can be very brutal, and you could be number one around the world, and then all of a sudden, bang, you're dropped. No one cares. And I think it's very sad that there's no sort of kind of training so that kids know how to deal with that. And they don't know how to perform a lot of them either. You know, we were performing for years, honing our craft and learning how to actually perform in front of an audience.
But also, we had a very difficult, you know, we had a difficult time as well, where in the second album we weren't selling so many records, and then the record company really nurtured us and said, "No, you're okay. You know, we'll give you another album." And thank God they did, because that album was true. Yeah. Where now you would get
don't get that chance.
And traditionally, the third album is always the album that's the most successful, because you know the first album you record your live set, second one you experiment a bit, and third normally maybe you get it together, get it right. That's very difficult nowadays because no one gets a second single, let alone a second or third album.
Yeah, now a record is seen as a product, but in fact a record is a piece of art. It's a creation. It's not something, you know. It's got a life of its own, and this trying to make everything into something that's, you know, immediately financially successful. It just isn't the way to develop a band with a long-term future.
Sure.
You know, we came out of at a time when bands were in control of what they were doing, and you know, as the new decade began, and so a lot of other mediums were starting. You know, magazines like The Face, and then cable television, and you know, there was a lot more for us to explore and exploit, and you know, our personalities were becoming well known across the globe with MTV and Video Musica. So I think, you know, we had a chance to, you know, it's a very different time to now. It's a very exciting time to be around, you know.
There's no roadmap for being in a band. You're making it up as you go along, quite literally, for the good and the bad, and you have to react to that. And the great thing about Spandau, you know, is we're a team, and you know, rock and roll is a real team game. And,
if there's one thing that I would have liked to have had in the movie that didn't get into the movie, I would like to have had more.
I wouldn't do that.
Not that bit. No.
I would like to have had more of Steve Dagger's role, because I think that he is definitely an integral part of the band and of the way that the band's developed over the years, and I think they had a very clear idea right from the outset.
Still integral. That's why he didn't want to be in the film.
Yes.
He's not stupid.
Exactly. Maybe the next film is a film about managers.
Idea.
E riguardo la vostra rivalità con i Duran Duran, la devo fare questa domanda, e quanto era reale e quanto invece è stata costruita dai giornali.
We were friends.
We were friends.
It was a friendly rivalry. You know, whenever we bumped into them, we would generally socialise with them, and normally it entailed drinking competitions and things like that. You know, normal stuff that you do with your peers, people your own age. And we, you know, but interestingly, we never released a single, Duran Duran and Spandau Ballet.
But Simon and Tony did have a baby.
It's
been kept very
love
secret.
child.
Che ricordo?
It is quite, that's disturbing.
Sorry, X-rated. No, you don't have to go.
E che ricordo avete dei vostri tour in Italia? La gente qui impazziva per voi, e che emozione provate al pensiero di tornare qui appunto in tour?
You can see it in the film.
Yeah.
Some of the best
Madness.
live footage
Yeah,
with me,
terrifying.
and I'm wearing the Italian flag on my back, you know, and the audience is, it was, you know, we broke Italy late, actually. We didn't start really making Italy work for us until the late 80s. And it was because of Video Musica starting. and but it was the most exciting crowd ever. I mean, when we first walked on stage for the encore, and everyone's hey oh, hey oh. Oh my God, never heard that before. That was wonderful.
I think the band have a very special relationship with Italy. You know, we've spent a lot of time here and played, you know, from top to bottom of Italy. So, they're the greatest crowds in the world.
What do you feel to come back in Italy for your?
It is wonderful, as John said. It's a very special place.
Second home.
And, it's.
Yeah, you could tell on just on Twitter things, you know, that the Italian fans have been waiting for this film premiere, waiting for us to come back, more than any other country outside of the UK.
Ciao, Funweek!